Our next panel at FinTech in 2021 is cybersecurity. What are the best practices to optimize incident handling? So we need to work out, what does incident handling mean inside of your organization when you have a cybersecurity problem? And not only what does it mean for the different stakeholders inside of your organization? What does it mean for management? What does it mean for engineering? What does it mean for your customers or maybe external partners? Do we need to understand what this means for everybody? What do we have standard operating procedures in place? Are our SOPs, are they real documents? So often our response documentation just sits in a file. It's never used. We need to make sure that people can implement this at a moment's notice. And we want to make sure, how do we manage the expectations of internal and external partners? It's a big topic, and to go through it with us, our moderator for this session is Tomas Bin Araverechus, and he is Senior IT Security Consultant at Transcendent Group. He's an IT security professional with both practical experience in security management and theoretical background in various IT security disciplines. And before that, he was doing coordination of IT security response and threat intelligence for Swedbank Group. Thomas, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Luis, I'm really looking for this panel, and we have really good panelists here.
I know, it's going to be a good one. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be great. Let's carry on with the panel.
So, in this panel, I would like to. We will be covering cybersecurity, best practices to optimize incident handling, and we have three guests today, together with me. First on video line is Mario Golatovic, who is Vice President, Product Management and Technical Alliance at Ultimaco. With the experience of more than 15 years in cybersecurity, Mario is dedicated to design, future, and trust. He's an expert focusing in the application of cryptography in complex infrastructures. Our next panelist is Thomas Martinkanas. He's Director of Security and Privacy at Vinted. And Thomas is passionate about making most of the value to the organizations through the privacy and security leadership. He was Chief Information Security Officer in Merged at that time, and one of the largest financial services providers in the Baltics, until changing the sector. Currently, he is Director of Privacy and Security at Vinted, the most extensive online customer-to-customer marketplace in Europe dedicated to second-hand fashion, with a growing community of 37+ million participants. And the last but not the least, Marius Perečius, who is Vice President at Paysera. Marius is a Lithuanian entrepreneur, innovator, coach, and startup enthusiast. Marius will share his personal experience with the latest fintech crime trend and share ideas on how to protect yourself and your business. So, speaking about cybersecurity incidents and their handling, the cybersecurity may mean quite a lot to different people. So, what is cybersecurity incident for you, and what are the different types of incidents, if I may so?
So I can start. And actually, for me, when I'm thinking about cybersecurity incident, first of all, I'm thinking about the thousands or hundreds of thousands events happening in the organization or spectrum of environment, and only limited amount of those events are actually incidents, and they could have various types, reasons, and so on. and only spectrum of those are actually cybersecurity incidents. For me, the cybersecurity incidents are the ones who are happening in a cyberspace, where our confidentiality, integrity, or availability of data or services is actually somehow affected from the baseline, which we understand as a basis of our regular business as usual services.
From my perspective, cybersecurity incident is mostly the incidents which happens with usage of data, digital data mostly, sometimes physical events. An example is social engineering stuff. Sometimes you don't need to touch any digital device even to, an example, steal money or just to transfer money. It's enough just to talk with person who is standing next to you or just to ask him to do something. Sometimes it's some kind of circus where you just helping different kind of people, different kind of devices, different kind of data to present you the event information, what's happened in the past, because in most cases the accidents is just a logs for us, not even the present data. So we need to find a way how to protect ourselves if we know a history of the cyber incident which happens just sometimes hours ago, or sometimes it's even 5 or 10 years ago. Maybe somebody just touched you and just looked for some kind of patterns, and he will use them in several years when you will be less secure than at the beginning. It's just things which happened in the world which can crush everyone and everything. An example, one of my last experiences which happened last week, one of the Lithuanian metal producers, metal enterprises, was encrypted. It's the big manufacturers with 200 people, which was closed just because of cyber incidents with malware, which encrypted all data of all servers and all computers. And some of the incidents, like the ones which are happening at medical institutions, which happened last year, which one of them happened this year, when people even dying after cyber incident. Nobody understands about such kind of possibilities 10, 20 years ago. We just talked about that kind of actions, that kind of cyber war which appears to our real world life, but it's happening.
So cyber incidents bridging from cyberspace to real space. Mario, what's your take on that?
I think I cannot agree more with my two panelist colleagues. Security or the cybersecurity incidents cover a wide variety of security violations, as my former speakers already said. It's violations for systems, network, data access violations, malware, DDoS attacks, etc. But what's very important, I think, we should also, because from my experience, there's the security incident and the security breach. And what I understood before was we mix those things. In my words, the security incident is basically everything, right? And then the security breach basically pertains to data breaches only. So basically, it specifically relates to unauthorized access or theft or data only. I think it's very important to differentiate, especially if we think about what we can read in the news and the magazines, etc. pp. And basically that's the only add-on I wanted to make what they said. As I said, I really totally agree with my former speakers were saying.
We really want to identify the incidents at the most earlier stage, and Marius mentioned that there are cases that incident happened 10 years ago. First of all, how does it happen? Why the incidents go undetected so long time, and what can we do to detect them earlier? Thomas, maybe you can start.
Yeah, it happens so that we have a diversity of maturity across the organizations when it comes to monitoring of cyber events, of our network, of data protection capabilities. And not all of the companies are mature enough to detect those incidents. And some of the attacks, cybersecurity attacks, hacking attempts, whistleblowers, the attacks are so advanced that it's actually hard to detect. And if you even detect that type of advanced attack, it's impossible actually to collect any kind of evidences because they are just deleted from the systems and log management systems. Yeah, but so the question is like what to do in this kind of situation and from where to start. And I believe the first step is raising the awareness in the organization across the employees, IT technicians, vendors, and all the different stakeholders. Because even though you don't have a sophisticated system that is capable to detect patterns or some anomalies, there is something that, for example, network administrators or system administrators or just employees working in the organization can do about to detect those, to spot those things, detect those things, and report to the responsible personnel. So from my take, first step is to increase the awareness and then step by step improve the technology used for detection.
Hey, Thomas, I think you are completely spot on. I think it's, first of all, it's us training our people, our employees, our partners on awareness, what we consider as security governance, right? And then follow basically a best practice of maybe it's even a good thing to look into what other parties are doing, follow some kind of public security governance standards, for example. Ensure that security patches are there for software, hardware at any time, monitor, as you said, even build the right kind of agreements with suppliers, partners, business partners, what they are allowed to do, what they are not allowed to do, etc. pp.
But maybe there is some magic box that you can put on the network that would protect you.
Yeah, it's named denied of a service box. Just closing every connection, just spoofing of real GSM signal, spoofing real GSM Wi-Fi, and other things. You just need to close all networking things. If you remember, there was some kind of jokes. Just unplug the cable of the network connection just to disable the connectivity.
Yeah, right. This was from kind of a bit of joke, but speaking a bit more seriously, incidents are a bit different, and if you can't speak about that, I understand that it might be a bit confidential. But what were the worst incidents that occurred in your city, in your organizations or in your practice? Marius.
I'm working for fintech just for last few years, but if we're talking about the worst scenarios and worst things what happened in organizations I was, I think it's the cyber incidents in Ukraine when our company investigated the virus named Black Energy. The virus come from Russia. They disabling power stations or power substations in the cities. They was targeted, each virus instance was targeted to particular power station. They shut it down 2 airports, one in the Kiev and one in Odessa. They shut it down quarter of the Kiev. and some other smaller towns. So this means that nobody in real life can be safe while some unprotected devices in power distributing network exist. They can shut down anything, they can kill people, they can disable anything in real life environment. They don't have power generators, they don't have UPSs. Some people dying at medical institutions just because of power distributor who just disabled the electricity at the surgery room.
Thank you. Anyone can share their experiences?
Maybe I can also share an experience which is real life, I would say reality, without sharing the customer's name. But we really were working with a big financial institution where one of the, call it, former employees departed the company, and he was really able to basically take backups of whole customer databases with him, which basically meant or means afterwards, after he left the company, those databases were available for selling on the internet or on the darknet, to be even more precise. And you could really even follow in the log files afterwards that this was what happened, basically, why this customer data was suddenly available.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the same thing, actually, that whistleblower incidents, they are really hard to manage, because if there is a malicious attacker from the outside, most probably she or he is not maintaining all the possible information that you can get from the inside. But when it is an insider doing any kind of harm, and yeah, definitely the most interesting incidents are the ones that you cannot talk about, but still had an experience with a group of insiders acting as malicious actors in the organization, and how they can act and how they can spread out through the organization simply becomes close to impossible to detect and somehow prevent these kind of type attacks.
Thank you. But you mentioned that it's sometimes it's very difficult to prevent attacks, and it's very difficult to detect the attacks, especially when we come to or speak about insiders. But overall, what organizations could do to better prepare for the incident? What could be the 2-3 steps that each organization should start doing right now?
Yeah, I think the first step here, and it's a kind of low-hanging fruit because it doesn't cost you a lot, but it gives a lot of, as an investment, is tabletop testing. Just simple testing of going through the processes or procedures you have in your organization to try out actually what's working, what's not. If the communication is working, if everybody understands their responsibilities. Because when the incident happens, and it happens, simply people are just basically very limited in the knowledge of how to do things, how to react, what to communicate and what not to communicate, because it doesn't happen each day. Except in maybe large organizations where it is business as usual to deal with the incidents, and there are dedicated teams working on that. But still, people forget about things, what should be done in that case, and to have just simply something written on a paper where you can take a glance to, understand what's your role, do your job in the best possible manner in this situation. I think it's worth doing these tabletop testing exercises.
To train people, and maybe even to train in different way. An example, by some kind of social engineering them. An example, sending them email with some kind of offer for a better salary, which attached PDF. which have a virus or have weird, not suspicious virus inside. Send the employees somewhere, an example, to post office to get the package. But with sending a message via untrusted channel, an example, it can be email, it can be SMS and other things. And to meet him after he's coming back to the office, how is the package? What kind of package? Where you was? You was to pick up a package? Why you trust? You don't have the sender. You never asked sender to send something. Why are you going to pick up a package which doesn't exist? That kind of services, that kind of trainings for people, helping them slowly to understand and remember, but security must be in mind all the time. While we're on the streets, while we enter working place, maybe while we're entertaining at home.
Do you find those cyber ranges where you can practice incident handling useful? In your opinion?
Yeah, it's actually, as Marius has mentioned, training is very much important. Repeating training, showing the examples, because simply by understanding the threat, the possible threat to a personal cyberspace, work organization cyberspace, it is very much important. And what we see that we can spend hundreds, thousands into sophisticated cyber security monitoring, detecting systems, but eventually it still might fail because of a simple human error leading to an incident. Yeah, so training people, training our systems and processes to understand that is leading to a limitation of the cost that might hit us during the incident.
I agree again completely, but my experience is maybe it's even one step higher. Sometimes you work with organizations which don't even know their risk, which risk they're having, which assets they're having, and what to protect. So what I want to say, it's maybe even one step before they can train people. They need to understand why they need to train people and on what they need to train people. All the rest, again, I totally agree. Nothing more to add, I guess.
But I wonder, in general, when handling incident, you need sometimes you need some specific competences. So what type of competences are required for handling incident? Especially speaking from your company perspective, significant large organizations which are pretty mature in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I would say two main things: the preparation done before the incident hits, and really experienced people in the field, because basically each and every incident might be different, might have a different specifics, and procedures might not work all the time. We can talk about business continuity management and preparation for the crisis situations, crisis modes, where specifically we do not know what will happen, but we try to guess what might be affected and somehow work in that field. But really, the experienced incident manager with a lot of practice in the field, in the area, can literally do a lot of good when it comes to incident in the organization.
Good troubleshooters who did it in the past. I think experience is the main factor here, because sometimes the fixing of the accident can take too much to a company, and the penalties they will receive in case of GDPR or even some kind of government regulation can cost company even license or even closing of a company. If we're talking about troubleshooting of real IT stuff. Sometimes you need even zip pack of the hardware to fix some things. In case of cyber accidents with some kind of attacks with a big network flood, you need to have suppliers to sign to some kind of agreements for the future, to have a backup plan for networking thing, backup plan for data migration, even backup plan for establishing new setup on new data centers you don't even think about just few years ago. Sometimes shit happens. Sometimes even data centers burning down, like in France or even in Lithuania. We had that kind of accidents here also in last, let's say, 15 years. The question is how you will survive in day X or maybe day Z.
Yeah. So basically, I guess we need to think about having business continuity plannings. How do we proceed with this? And when it comes to the perfect incident handling role, as you mentioned, I think there is not, as Thomas and Marius described, there is not the one person, but maybe the answer should be there should be a process how to handle different kind of security incidents, like, and then match it with detect, respond, I don't know, analyze, and then always do it in a circle. Involve, identify the right stakeholders, involve them, inform them, yeah, and match all this process against the risk your company is facing, your organization is facing.
You mentioned stakeholders actually, and stakeholders might have very, very high expectations on the incident handling. And first of all, that incidents doesn't happen. How to... On the other hand, we really know that incidents do happen, and they will happen. And question is, do you have any suggestions how to manage stakeholders' expectations? How to make them understand that that cyber incidents probably unavoidable, and they need to prepare for that?
I can maybe start. So if we are talking about stakeholders, and in this case specifically about top management or management interest, other business departments interest in cybersecurity incidents and handling, it's actually so that first of all, the ones who are dealing with the incident, the ones who are preparing with the incidents needs to understand that business environment and specifically threat environment, threat actors. And this is impossible to do without actually management or other stakeholders' involvement, because everybody in the organization has have their own bits and pieces into that map. And this is already a learning experience, a learning road for the main stakeholders. It's where they learn that, hey, yeah, we are in a such a business environment where we have competitors, where there are maybe governance actors involved, where we are owning data which might be very interested for hackers, or we are running services that might get disrupted. So it's a learning experience, starting from understanding our threats, understanding our risks specifically. The risk assessment, risk management methodology is what brings you to them to actually street of understanding where we are now, what might happen to us, and what is the gap between this these two. So eventually it is all learning experience, and then training and testing. For example, penetration testing might show very practically that yes, there are gaps that can be used by malicious actors, and yeah, there are known unknowns then and unknown unknowns for which you might never get prepared, you know. So this is where we are then discussing incident management and importance of that.
I think in most cases the stakeholders must understand what you will be hacked or your data will be some kind of exposed publicly. One day they must understand that all databases will be hacked anyhow. Even your business can be stolen digitally, and they must be ready for the plan B, what to do if it will happen. For some shareholders, in this case, if they're not ICT guys, it's complicated to explain. But for our company, luckily, we are ICT company and all stakeholders are from ICT, so they saw that kind of accidents at the beginning of setting of a company, and we understand that sooner or it will come bigger and bigger, and in environment of concurrency, even our competitors trying to steal some data, sometimes just to penetrate, test ourselves, even to publish that kind of data to some government institutions or even to national bank as a whistleblowing information, and we're receiving some kind of audits from the government institutions, even on fintech scenes here in Lithuania. We need a plan B, maybe plan C sometimes, and we need it somewhere close to us, and to be prepared to use it even tonight. It's complicated at fintech world, but it's happening. We need to be ready. We need to invest money to people, invest money to the hardware, even invest money for some kind of backupping things. Maybe you will not use it in the next 5 years, but they must be prepared and they must wait for time, and they can be used for that. There are no time for fixing up things when you already hacked.
Yes, I think it's very important to keep the stakeholders, once they are identified from the very beginning, involved. Build this business continuity planning, as Mario said. We might have to think about a plan B and plan C. What happens if? And if happens, then basically follow a professional procedure. And when I say professional procedure, there are even standards in the field, right? Maybe based on vertical, based on geography, based on country, how to, basically manage this kind of incident.
But you guys mentioned actually not only well, speaking about stakeholders, you also mentioned general public, and when the incident comes to is announced publicly and discussed publicly, there's quite a lot of noise around it, and probably papers write about it, television shows talks about it. Can that be managed in the long run?
I think, Thomas, you know myself, and you know how I look at Lithuanian TVs, portals and other things. I think I'm the guy number one who talking about that publicly from the business perspective, not government perspective. So in this kind of situation, you need the same plan B with public relation plan, who will speak, what kind of things they will explain, not to expose everything at one time, talk with government institutions and prepare even plan C. Can we talk? Can we show? Can we say? Maybe we'll expose too much information about cybercrime stuff, and it will close some kind of investigation things with police, maybe with economical investigation bureau. Next to it, you need to talk with your clients. Your clients need your message, not public, not government. Your clients need to be in feeling of safeness at the situation with accident, we need to understand what kind of information was exposed, what kind of information was hacked and maybe will be used in next month, in next years. Maybe you need to change your passport. Maybe you need to change your driving license. Maybe there are even usernames or passwords exposed. Maybe there was some kind of funds transferred from your accounts. Maybe there was no funds at the balance of the fintech left anymore. That kind of accidents can even happen. We saw some crypto exchanges like Undetected, which was hacked fully, and all the funds was transferred out, and they lost everything. So there must be some kind of plan for publicity. Who will talk, how will talk, and what are kind of situation information you will expose publicly. And there are no way just to pick up a phone and answer to the, let's say, hundreds of customers in a minute with your support phone line. If we're talking about big customer bases of hundreds of thousands or even millions for some our colleagues, you need to publish information. You need to explain them. Maybe you need even to have some kind of external block or external accounts with some kind of possibility to publish somewhere, even if your system is closed. An example, you just disabled from a whole network, like some shit happens with Facebook just a week ago. You need public sources to expose it. You just need to say, okay, we will fix it up in few hours, wait for it. But if you did that only at your own resources and you don't have network connectivity, publish everything you want. Nobody will see it. So you need a plan B, even C, to expose it somewhere else. Maybe it's just an idea for some companies.
Yeah, I think, Marius, again, I totally agree. We have to have this plan B, C, maybe even D. But it's not only important to have this plan, it's also important, that's the experience we made in the past, if we have built the plan, maybe even including external stakeholders, as you said, maybe government agencies, maybe the press, whatever, to review the plan, maybe any other year or any other 6 months, to make sure the plan still fits with the risk you are in and with the technologies, as you said, with the market you are in, with your customer base, with your, with your regulations. So again, it's really also a process on top. This needs to be repeated. We need to be aware about it. Our employees, our partners, our customers, they all need to be aware that this can happen. It might happen for sure, but we need to be able to, as soon as it happens, to tackle it in the right professional way.
Yeah, I could just add to that and highlight from practical perspective that if you are not prepared and the incident hits you and it is related with the public media somehow, there are so many moving parts inside the organization. There are internal communication stakeholders, external communication teams asking constantly about the status, about details of the incident, what we need to do, suggesting different aspects of it, and so on and so on. And simply, if you haven't agreed any kind of principles, just starting from the principles, any kind of preparation isn't done for that, it becomes really, really hard to manage the incident. And eventually, the incident management prolongs, customers are not happy about that, regulators are not happy about that, and the company is facing financial losses.
You actually mentioned regulators, and we discussed quite a lot about explaining the incident to customers, explaining the incident to internal stakeholders, but actually some areas are regulated, and we're speaking about in fintech world there is financial service regulators. There are some other regulators that deal with data privacy for large companies. What is important for regulators during the incident? What information you should deliver to them? In which way? In your experience, do they have any specific maybe expectations?
Yeah, it's not that the regulators require information just for the sake of having it. For example, data protection authority, they need to know about the data breach which is happening in your environment, because they protect human rights, privacy rights, so that they can follow up and communicate. For example, national security teams, cybersecurity incident management teams, they need to know, they need to gather the evidences so that they can communicate to other institutions and maybe prevent the incident from spreading across the country or across the globe. And we need to respect that, and we need to understand why they need that information and what information they need and in what time frames they do need that information. It's very important to have these communication lines with the regulators and constantly communicate with them, definitely when preparing for the incident and when the incident happens.
From my experience, in most cases, governmental institutions is just statistics departments of the governance. They just collecting data, and they can help you just with saying, sorry, we don't have any information how we can help you. We collected information from you. Don't send us information after work hours. We don't work at nights. We don't work at weekends. We can pick up a phone at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. Oh, half of Lithuania become without internet. Fix it. We can't help you. We just collecting data, and we just publishing reports about cyber accidents. We don't have expertise to help business or private persons to survive it with cyber war. But they can help if something happens with critical infrastructure. In our case in Lithuania, fintechs and big portals is not the part of critical infrastructure in Lithuania. So they just collecting data. Yes, we have some kind of mandatory things that's on the laws. We have prepared reports, we're publishing them, information about some accidents which happens at our scope, but that's all.
When you go through all the incident life cycle, from identification through handling, through the remediation and so on, one important step is lessons learned. And what are the practical ways to perform that, and what can you learn from the incidents? How you can make sure that your organizations get better next time?
In our organization, we call these lessons learned postmortems, which we encourage each and every employee who is somehow responsible for managing the incident or has participated in managing the incident to sit down after the incident, think it through, write it down on a paper, because it's interesting for others to read and understand what we can learn from that.
Okay, so we discussed a whole range of security incident from identification through handling and remediation, and one important step that is left is actually lessons learned. And what is your experience in your organizations? How you do lessons learned exercise, and how you make sure that your organizations get better after the incident.
Yeah, it's a very important aspect of incident management to actually not end the cycle just when the incident is resolved, but to sit down and think it through, what you can learn from managing the incident and how you can improve your processes or systems to be better prepared next time. And for that reason, for each and every noticeable incident in our organization, we are writing postmortems that are internally available for others to read and discuss.
I really like this post-mortem documentary, I would call it. But I would say from a stakeholder perspective, what do we get out of it? I even think about, I saw organizations when they do this post-mortem analysis, document it and share it with the right people, I would say, either on an internal website, whatever. It's maybe also important to then build, as soon as we identified on this post-mortem analysis, there are, ways to improve it, how we handled the incident, to build KPIs for the employees, for the team, to do so, to give them also something they can work against. So the next incident we manage, I don't know, in 12 hours instead of 14 or something like this. Or next time we call this stakeholder after 5 minutes, not after 10 only.
Training material, updating of internal documentation for next time, to train new people who will come to the team. And next to it, the same internal documentation, just as blog or just as message to others to understand what's happened and how to handle it next time.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the discussion. Thank you, Marius. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas, thank you very much for your moderation of our panel session. I thought there were some interesting topics that were brought up. Overall, when you look across the organizations that you work with, how would you rate general preparedness for these sort of security incidents? Do you see companies being reasonably well prepared, or are you a bit worried?
There is a really big spectrum of those companies. Some companies are really well prepared. Some companies really lack basic preparedness. So this spectrum is really, really great, really, really big, and well, probably those companies that don't have good preparedness should start preparing now.
Back in the day when I was an IT consultant, I mean, to me, backup and IT security incidents are very similar in that we often might have a plan, we might have often thought it through what we're going to do, but rarely had we actually tried to implement that. And the analogy is a backup. Have you ever tried to restore the backup? In IT responses, have you ever actually tried to implement the plan? Do you see that a bit happening in corporations?
Actually, testing is always the big thing. When you start testing, you see the important gaps in your plan, and you see all the additional preparedness that you need to do. So testing is most important thing, I think.
Cool. I would agree as well. All right, Thomas, thank you very much for your moderation today. Thank you, everyone. This is the FinTech in 2021 Cyber Security Panel. Thanks for watching.